We're here at gotomath.com looking at some calculus. We've got a request for this problem. Well, not actually this problem, but the next problem, but I thought I would just add this one to it. It says find the derivative using the definition. So we're going to be wanting to find f prime of x, and of course we have f of x equal to 9 over x cubed. So let's remember that. Let's try to remember that anyway. F of x is equal to 9 over, and you know what? I just now realized something. Let's kind of simplify that a little bit more. And I'll tell you the reason why here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and use 10 over x squared, okay? I think once you understand this, you'll get the rest of them, if that was a cubed or a fourth. But 10 over x squared, sorry about that. All right. 10 over x squared. So we want to find f prime of x. That's what we want to find. F prime, that little bar thing is called prime. This will be the derivative. Okay? And we're going to do that by using, I guess you could say, this formula here. The limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x, right? So the first thing we're going to want to find is f of x plus delta x, and we'll just do that right over here. So f of x plus delta x is going to be equal to, so we're going to take this x plus delta x and plug it in where there's an x. So that's going to be 10 over x plus delta x quantity squared. See that? Now what we're going to need to do here is kind of getting ahead of myself, but what we'll eventually need to do is we'll need to expand this out. Alright? And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And that's the reason I said if this was a 3 or a 4, you know, it gets pretty messy real fast if this was like a 4. Right? Because we'd have x plus delta x times x plus delta x times x plus delta x times x plus delta x. Oh Lord. So x times x is x squared. And then we have x times delta x and then delta x times x. So that would make that 2 x's delta x's. And then delta x times delta x is delta x squared. Okay? So we're going to need to know that. We're going to need to know that, so that's why I went ahead and did that. Now let's go ahead and plug this in up here. Okay, so we end up having the limit as delta x approaches 0 of 10 over x plus delta x quantity squared. That's going to replace this minus, of course our f of x is just 10 over x squared, and then of course everything is over delta x, as you can see here. Now we'll need to get this into one single fraction right here. Okay, so that's something we'll need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and write an equal sign. Well, no, you don't need to write an equal sign there, but write an equal sign here. The limit as delta x approaches 0. So I'm just going to multiply this x squared times 10 up here. So this is 10 times x squared minus, and then 10 times, multiply this up here. That way, cross multiplication, kind of a short way method of dealing with this fraction here. And then of course, right, you're going to multiply those two guys together. Okay, I'm going to take it you know how to do fractions at this point in your math career. Alright, and then of course it's all over delta x. Now we'll need to go ahead and clean this thing up. Now remember, we're going to be utilizing this right here for down here in the denominator. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the limit as delta x approaches 0. And of course, you know what? Let's do this. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't write an equal sign here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Try to save some space. So we have 10x squared we're going to have minus, go ahead and distribute that negative 10 across, so minus 10x, and then, we can't do that. What am I thinking? You know what? I think you're all grown up at this point. So what is this? This is x plus delta x squared. That's this guy right up here. You can't see the whole thing. Let me scroll up here. But that would be this part right here, okay? That's the x plus delta x quantity squared. That's going to be this piece right up here. So let's go ahead and multiply this negative 10. Of course, we can't go that times that. No. It'd be negative 10, right, and distributing it across each one of these guys right here. So let's just go ahead and do that. So negative 10 times this is negative 10x squared, okay? And then minus, and I'm hoping we can get, you know what? My gosh. Okay. Maybe I should have done that down here. Okay, you're going to need to, I got room down here. So we have 10x squared minus 10 times x squared. Okay, and then negative 10 times, this is going to be negative 20. X times delta x, and then minus 10 times this guy right here is just going to be minus 10, whoops, delta x squared. Okay, so that's expanding this piece out right here. All right, and then of course that is going to be all over x squared, and of course we're going to be multiplying that x squared times this guy right here, okay? So this would be x squared times x squared is x to the fourth, all right? And then x squared times this guy right here is going to be 2x to the third delta x plus x squared times delta x squared. Alright, now remember this is all over delta x. Okay, so we'll need to clean this thing up now. Okay, so let's go ahead and cancel out some terms here. We know that 10x squareds will cancel out here, right? And what are we left with? Doesn't look like we're left with much of anything left on the top. Now this can actually be rewritten. We're going to be taking this now and dropping it down into the bottom. Okay, so we have the limit as delta x approaches 0 of negative 20x delta x minus 10 delta x squared over delta x, then times x to the fourth plus 2x to the third delta x plus x squared delta x squared. We're almost done. Hang in there. Okay. Now we can cancel some delta x's out. If I factored out a delta x up here, we'd end up canceling that delta x out, that out, and you'd just be left with one delta x over here. And then what we would do now is go ahead and plug a 0 in for where there's a delta x, and so we end up with, now we're actually doing the limit now, so we'd end up plugging a 0 in here. That would end up becoming 0. We'd be left with negative 20x on top over, plugging a delta x in here, this would be 0, that would be 0, and we'd be left with an x to the fourth, as you can see. And then of course we could simplify this down to negative 20 over x to the third. And of course this is our f prime of x. Oh my gosh. Alright, it's not that bad, I promise. Anyway, negative 20 over x to the third. I believe that's what I had, yeah. Okay, so hopefully he was able to hold on to all that. All right, well, good luck and see you later, alligators.